In this video, I'm going to outline everything you need to know about one of the most effective muscle building programs, German volume training. Now, this training protocol is widely recognized as one of the most effective and rapid muscle builders out there. I've used it personally multiple times and used it to very good effect with my online personal training clients. But like with any powerful tool, it needs to be used responsibly. There are times when you should use German volume training and times when you shouldn't. So I'm going to go into the details and into the weeds about when it can best serve you. First, as a quick background, let's have a look at the origins of German volume training. So German volume training is also known as the 10-set method, or GVT. So there's some debate as to the origins of German volume training, with some people attributing the training protocol to 1950s and 60s Olympic weightlifting coaches. So what they would use the 10-set method for was to change weight classes of their athletes. So not necessarily looking at a performance gain there, but to actually stack on enough mass for them to be able to weigh more and compete at a higher weight class, which really lends itself to this whole idea of it being a very rapid mass gainer. It's also been linked with Vince Gironda, legendary Iron Guru, a very famous and, like I say, legendary bodybuilding coach who came up with a lot of protocols that are still used in bodybuilding circles and beyond even now. And he would use it with his athletes, but he saw or sort of observed that a lot of people, 10 by 10 would be quite a lot of volume for them, and it would be a little bit too much for some people. So he would then specialize it, and he would use the 10 by 10 to work on a given area. So to maybe bring up a weak body part, which we'll talk about later, but perhaps not the whole total body regime. Then we should also recognize Charles Poliquin, who really was a massive proponent of German volume training and called it the 10-set method. And he used it to very, very good effect for massive muscle gains with the people he coached, and talked about it in the writing he did as well. So as we talk through the training protocol, it's important to consider that any recommendations made will have their exceptions. There's always going to be individual circumstances where a slight nuance change or a slight variable adjustment would make sense. And I'm also speaking from the position of a personal trainer, not from the position of a bodybuilder. So I've used this training protocol to gain muscle in my own training, and I've used it with scores of clients who have seen excellent results using it as well. But it's important to note that none of those people would consider themselves bodybuilders. So we can inherit a lot of the methodology and the mindset and protocols from the bodybuilding world, but we're not necessarily using it within a life that is peaking for a given show or photo shoot. So you don't have to live like a bodybuilder to gain from protocols like German volume training, but it's important to understand the methodology and pay homage to the kind of discipline and determination it's going to take to get to the other side of such a grueling training program. So I'm going to outline the protocol, and I'll discuss who could stand to benefit from it, who should avoid it right now, and what some of the variables are and some of the misconceptions or mistakes that you could easily avoid. This protocol involves 10 sets of 10, 3 workouts over a 5-day period with rest days in between workouts, and is generally repeated for 30 days and can be extended depending on physical and mental fatigue as a result of the demanding protocol. Each workout is to have 4 exercises. We would consider A1 and A2 your superset exercises, and then B1 and B2 your accessory exercises, which will be 3 sets of 10. So there's an opportunity for variables with the way you put together your supersets. You could go A1, A2, rest, or you could go A1, rest, A2. And the first one would be a little bit more of an intense set, and then perhaps lending itself to a longer rest period. And the second would be a little bit more balanced and perhaps a shorter rest period, which will be the 60 seconds. So it just goes to highlight how you can program the German volume training protocol in an individual basis, and there are a few things that we can manipulate as we program. It's important to note that small variations like rest periods on a leg day aren't going to be enough to impede the whole German volume training program from working or delivering results. Really, at this level of volume, it's all going to work as long as once you've designed your training program, you stay consistent to the variables you've set. So you do have some flexibility in designing the program for yourself. I will outline some mistakes or things that we can avoid easily that could impede the results of the program later in the video. Exercise selection should be considered ahead of time, and most people are going to benefit from using classical bodybuilding exercises that deliver the most bang for the buck. The actual exercises you use for your German volume training will depend on you. For example, some people prefer to avoid squats on leg day, for example, because 10 sets of 10 of squats is notoriously challenging, perhaps even to the point of not being able to complete the workout. So they might use a leg press, for example, and that might be a little bit more tolerable. The other side to that coin is that the stabilizing nature of machine exercises is going to reduce the overall bodily demand. So you would have to figure out where you are as to whether you would consider that a positive or a negative. An example training regime might look like this. Day 1, chest and back. 10 sets of 10 on barbell bench press with 60-second rest periods, and 10 sets of 10 bent over barbell row with 60-second rest periods. We then move on to the accessory sets, which are 3 times 10 on cable crossover at 60 seconds rest, and 3 times 10 close grip front lateral pull down for 60 seconds rest. Day 2, we have legs and abs, 10 by 10 barbell squat, 90-second rests. Note that there's a longer rest period on this leg day, and then 10 by 10 lying leg curls, again 90-second rests, and note again that there's a longer rest period because it's the leg day. We then have 3 sets of 10 on seated calf raise, and back to the 60-second rest periods because these aren't as demanding a set, and 3 sets of 10 on hanging leg raises, which will be an abdominal exercise to finish off the workout. We then move on to shoulders and arms. We have 10 by 10 on seated dumbbell arm press with 60-second rest periods, and we have 10 by 10 upright barbell row, 3 sets at 60 seconds rests. We also have our accessory exercises, which will be 3 sets of 10 dumbbell hammer curl with 60-second rests, and 3 sets of 10 barbell skull crushers with 60 seconds rest. You would then have another day's rest and repeat the cycle. To highlight the adaptability of German volume training, another training regime which would still be German volume training might look like this. So we have day 1, chest and back, which would be 10 sets of 10 on dumbbell incline press for a medium grip and 90-second rest periods as an antagonistic superset with 10 sets of 10 of seated close grip lateral pull down with 90-second rest periods. As the accessory exercises, we have 3 sets of 10 flat dumbbell chest flies with 60-second rest periods and 3 sets of 10 standing lateral pull down with 60-second rest periods. Workout 2 would be abs and legs, and we have our 10 sets of 10 on leg press and a 90-second rest period, and antagonistic superset with deadlifts, again with a 90-second rest period. And then we have our accessory exercises, 3 sets of 10 standing barbell calf raise with 60-second rest periods, and 3 sets of 10 ab crunch with 60-second rest periods. Then we have workout 3, which is shoulders and arms. We're going for 10 sets of 10 on military press as an antagonistic superset with barbell shrug at a 60-second rest period. We then have 10 sets of 10 barbell bicep curl at 60-second rests, and 10 sets of 10 close grip bench press at 60 seconds rest. So notice in the second regime there that we've given the arm exercises 10 sets of 10, whereas in the first regime, they didn't get that. They were just accessory exercises. So the thinking behind that would be that in the second training program, that individual would be looking to bring their arms up or fast track the development of their arms because they felt like their arms were a lagging body part. So they'll take on the extra price or the extra cost of that extra volume so that the workout will be a little bit harder and the demand of the training protocol overall will be increased, but they need that to fast track their arm development. Others who are consider themselves happy with their arm development at the moment, I want to focus on the more classical compound exercises. They'll say, you know what, my biceps and triceps, they're synergist to the chest and back exercises, so they're going to get signals for growth as well. I don't need to prioritize them and give myself extra load from the program overall. So this is where it gets personalized, and this is where you would need to use your intuition and plan accordingly. So to choose your starting weights, we're going to be looking for 60% of your 1 rep max. Or another way of calibrating that is a weight that you can comfortably and in good form perform the exercise for 20 reps. So once we've got our starting weights, we would be looking for 10 sets of 10 or 10 attempts at that weight on a given exercise. So for example, if we're doing bench press and we're doing 60 kilograms, if we get our 10 sets of 10, on the next workout, we would move up by the smallest increment and then go to 62.5. And then we would look for 10 attempts at 62.5. And we would do that for each individual or constituent exercise within a workout. And you may get better performances on some exercises than others. That's why you have to track each exercise individually. So to return to that example, then on the third workout, we'd be looking at 65 kilograms and we may get 8 sets of 10, 1 9 and 1 8. So we've failed our attempts at 10 reps, but we haven't failed the workout because we attempted 10 reps and kept the variables controlled. So it's absolutely fine not to get the full rep range. It just means that on the following workout, we repeat the same weight and we just try to beat the previous performance. Even if we beat it by 1 rep on 1 set, that's still an improvement, still represents progressive overload, and is still going to give us access to that adaptation and force some change in the body. German volume training also comes with a recommended tempo or cadence. So for most beginner or intermediate lifters, maybe tempo is not a variable that you're used to manipulating, but it can really help because it allows us to increase a muscle's time under tension. So what German volume training calls for is that in your supersets, you're going to be looking for 4 seconds down and then no pause and then 2 seconds back up. So conventional tempo is 2 seconds down, 2 seconds up. So we're going to be slowing things down, 4 seconds down, no break, and then 2 seconds back up. And then on the isolation exercises, we're going to be moving away from 2-2 and we're going to be going to 3 seconds down, no pause, and 2 seconds back up. So we are manipulating time under tension, which means we don't have to use such heavy weights to get such great results. So it's worth noting that there can be some advanced exercise selection with German volume training, particularly if we're influenced by the Vince Gironda school of thought. And this is where we move away from some of the classical exercises and we really borrow from Gironda's methods. Some of these exercises could be sissy squat, wide grip parallel dips, or neck presses. And you really need to learn the form before you integrate them. So I wouldn't do this for the first time with German volume training. It's something you want to familiarize yourself with. And also this isn't to be confused with advanced German volume training, which is a different training protocol, which I'll cover in a different video. So now that we've outlined what German volume training is, let's have a look at why it works. With German volume training, we're targeting what we call motor units, and we're exposing them to an extraordinarily high amount of stress, and the body is going to respond to this level of volume by hypertrophying muscle fibers. And again, because this is such a high level of volume and it's going to represent such a contrast to what you're probably used to, this is where you really stand to benefit from contrast and benefit from that shock adaptation from the body. In terms of what you might stand to gain by doing German volume training, it's perfectly reasonable or widely accepted that users could gain as much as 10 pounds of lean muscle mass over the course of 6 weeks. Charles Poliquin said something to the similar effect of athletes being able to gain 5 pounds of lean muscle over 30 days. Of course, what you gain personally from German volume training is going to depend on how well you follow the training protocol, how well you rest, and what your nutrition is like over the course of the program, and also your proximity to what we might consider your natural potential, as in how muscular can you get with your particular DNA or physical attributes. If you're very, very close to that, you might not have 10 pounds to gain, whereas if you're an intermediate lifter and there's still a long way of progress to make, German volume training over the course of 6 weeks might be a great avenue for you to really close that gap and gain a great deal. To expand on that, let's explore who should and perhaps shouldn't be looking at German volume training in the near future. First of all, I would say that this is a very challenging training program and it's not for the faint of heart. I would also say that if you're a complete beginner or still kind of consider yourself a beginner with weight training, this isn't the right time to do German volume training because you're likely not going to have the conditioning to tolerate this level of load or the ability to recover from it adequately. And just things like tracking workouts, rest periods, those kind of things, if you're not doing it under guidance, you might get a couple of the variables wrong and really not stand to optimize the experience as best you can. Even though it's a very, very effective training protocol, if you're not at the level of conditioning from which you can benefit from it, then I would consider it an ace up your sleeve to play later when, you've benefited as much as you can from the more introductory training protocols. I would caveat that further by saying that even if you are an intermediate or advanced lifter, and you haven't had the most perfect run up to watching this video or the point at which you're considering German volume training, I would suggest you don't do it. Your body isn't going to give you the benefit of the doubt if it's in a compromised state physically. So if you're not able to recover from the workouts, even though you know that psychologically you could get yourself through a training protocol, I just wouldn't do it right now. I would regain that lost ground, get your conditioning back, and you stand to benefit greater from it when you're in the right state to do so. Also, if you're looking for out and out strength gains and strength is important to you, then whilst you'll probably get stronger on the German volume training protocol, it's not the most linear route to strength gains. This is really about adding muscle size. So if strength is really the name of the game for you, German volume training might not be the best option right now. So we've discussed the 30 days as sort of the on-ramp to German volume training. We need to make sure they were in order and you're coming in well conditioned. But we also need to think about the future as well. We're going to be on the training regime for 30 days, maybe 6 weeks. So if you know and you can tell already that you're going to be coming into a stressful environment or time period, a lot of responsibilities or obligations or bad logistics, then you might want to reconsider starting German volume training right now, because this isn't the kind of training program where you want to not be able to rest well or eat well. You're going to be hungrier than usual, you're going to be more tired than usual, your DOMs are going to be more intensified than usual, and if you can't account for those things, you could run into fatigue, even overtraining, and just not really get the most or maximal benefit from German volume training. So it's really important to think that through before you start. On more of a psychological note, it's important to know yourself when it comes to how you approach your workouts and training protocols, because this is a very grueling and taxing training regime. So I think before you approach German volume training, you should know that you've seen through various beginner and intermediate programs, tracked your workouts, stayed in that progressive overload, stayed consistent with your sleep and nutrition, because then you really know that you stand to benefit maximally from German volume training. It's also important to sort of figure out how you feel rewarded by workouts and how well stimulated you are by certain types of exercise, because on the surface of things, this is quite a tedious training protocol. It's 10 sets of 10, week after week, moving up in very, very small increments, keeping all of the variables completely controlled, and there isn't much variance or stimulation. So unless you can find a way, and this would be my suggestion, to find joy and satisfaction in the progressive overload and the knowledge that you know that you're progressing over time, this is going to be a tough training protocol. You really have to be able to find some kind of reward that you're following out a training program and actually remove yourself the need to be stimulated by a given workout, because it's just not going to be there. So whether you need to bring auxiliary measures like headphones, listening to things while you're doing it, or whether you're just going to stay stoic and just say, no, I'm going to see this training protocol through because I know it's based on a framework that will deliver results, you'll have to figure that one out. Because like I said, if you're going to do this for 6 weeks and you need a lot of stimulation, or you get bored easily from workouts, this is going to be tough, and I think you need to plan ahead for that and sort of have a plan in place. Now, you could argue that this will be easier for some than others depending on your neurotransmitter predominance, but regardless of that, without going into the weeds there, you're going to need to cultivate discipline, and you're going to need to not be stimulated by a given workout, and like I say, find joy and reward and stimulation through the overall framework. It's the only way to see something like German volume training through, because this is grueling mentally and physically. So before we talk about the 5 most common mistakes you can make with German volume training, I'm just going to return to what we said about Winske Ronda using German volume training, or the 10-set method, to really bring up a lagging body part. So if, say for example, your chest isn't growing, something of that nature, you could say, okay, I'm going to do this training program, not German volume training, but I'm going to bring in for one exercise 10 sets of 10, and hopefully that's going to fast track or bolster my results for the chest specifically. Now this would be very useful, like I say, if you have a lagging body part, or you just know that you have a lagging body part and you don't have the runway, as we discussed, to do something as grueling as German volume training for the next 6 weeks. That might be a way of not really bringing up the overall toll on your central nervous system too much, but really fast tracking the body part that you want to see progress in. Likewise, on the other end of the continuum, if you consider yourself quite advanced and you're very, very sort of edging close to your natural potential, but you know that there's just a body part that you would like to see a little bit more development in to round off your physique, you could do the same thing. You could instigate or introduce 10 sets of 10 on a given body part just to see it notch up a little bit to complete your physique, where you're in more of a maintenance or less demanding training protocol for the rest of your body. Okay, so now let's look at the 5 biggest mistakes that I see people make with German volume training and how to avoid them. The first mistake is bringing in additional tactics. So at the start of German volume training, we should agree that if we're doing German volume training, then we're doing German volume training because it works by exposing the body to such high amounts of stimulation through volume. If we then start introducing other auxiliary measures like drop sets, rest pauses, forced reps, those kind of things, those are variables that we haven't accounted for, we can't control, so they're going to interfere with us controlling all of the variables and staying in progressive overload, staying in overreaching, and forcing an adaptation. So if you're doing German volume training, just stick to the protocol, don't introduce any other auxiliary tactics. So the second mistake is somewhat linked to the first, and it's how we approach our rest days. So again, if you're doing German volume training, then German volume training is what you're doing. And I say that to say, don't have secondary goals that are going to accumulate more fatigue that don't serve your ability to perform or recover from your German volume training, because it's just so hard on the system. So this isn't the time to be also setting a goal to run a 5K or something of that nature, because what you're going to have to, the units of effort and energy you're going to have to give to that secondary goal are going to take away and detract from your German volume training. It's just the way it is. There's only so much time and there's only so much of your ability to recover. So what you really stand to benefit from is much lighter auxiliary exercise, like things like steady state cardio and very light. If you're going to do high intensity work, make it light, don't make it resistance based, make it short Tabatas, things like that your body can, it might be relatively hard workout, but your body can recover from it. The point is to not further compound the stress on your central nervous system on your resting days, because German volume training has to be the priority. And on that note, if you've got auxiliary goals or you've got sporting commitments or something of that nature, but you still want to gain size, then look into something like a HST training program that's going to work on high frequency but very low volume. So you might still get a great deal of the same results, but through a completely different mechanism and one that can support a secondary pursuit. So the third biggest mistake is changing your weights during a workout. So the goal here is not to arbitrarily just get 10 sets of 10. That doesn't do anything in particular. Well, it's going to do something, but it's not what we're trying to measure. What we're trying to measure is 10 attempts at 10 on a given weight. Whether we get them or not doesn't really matter. It's not that we're invested in. We record it and we keep all of our variables very well controlled so that we stand to track them against the next workout, but we're not overly invested in getting our 10 sets of 10. We just want to know that under controlled variables, we had 10 attempts at a given weight. If we get them, great, we move up by the smallest increment. But if you don't get them, it doesn't matter. The workout performance is only relative to the workout performance prior. And as long as you can beat the performance in the next workout, that's fine, even if it's by 1 rep. So don't make the mistake of lowering a weight to try to get your 10 sets of 10, because it doesn't matter if you get your 10 sets of 10. The important thing is that you have 10 attempts at a given weight and then continuing to build performance on that. I know it sounds like a bit pedantic, but it's really tracking the variables is really the only thing that's going to guarantee that we can see success, because otherwise we're just entering and sort of introducing elements of chaos that we can't track and can't account for. So the fourth mistake is very, very similar, but I will consider it a different mistake, and let's go into it. So this would be changing exercise during your German volume training program. So again, what we're trying to do is control the variables, track everything, establish progressive overload and maintain that, stay in that overreaching state, force adaptation. We can only do that with controlled variables. So again, playing that little hand of, it's like a joker card, it's like entering a little bit or introducing a little bit of chaos into the program every time you have a workout, because you need to swap exercises out to get the workout done. That isn't great, because we can't control for that, we can't track it. So what you need to do, and this is when it comes to the planning about German volume training, you've got to plan logistically as well. You need to know that if you're in a gym training environment, you need to be going at times where you can pretty much guarantee you can get your supersets and that equipment is going to be available. So I say it as a mistake at this point, because think ahead to what exercises you select. Go for exercises where they're plentiful. So it might be that you like doing a barbell bench press, but if there's only 2 bench press machines in the gym, you might stand to benefit from doing dumbbells or a chest press, depending on your individual setup. The most important thing is that you consistently get your workout done week on week without having to introduce these sort of elements of chaos. I would also say at that point then that even if you turn up to a gym and it looked like before you start and you can see that things are taken, take a little minute, go and get a coffee. There'll be plenty of times that I've gone to the gym looking to do my German volume training and just seeing that it's not the right time, taking 20 minutes to go and read something or go and have a coffee or something of that nature, doing a little bit of steady state cardio or mobility, whatever it takes to then start again, but maybe have a better environment to see the workout through. I know, again, it sounds pedantic, but it's only through controlling the variables where we can really make the most progress. So just a consideration. So the final mistake, and really the biggest one, is under resting. I can't stress enough that it's a very, very grueling workout, and you're really going to need to have your sleep in order. You're going to be managing stress as best you can. I know there are unforeseen circumstances, but have things in place. Mindfulness, meditation, whatever it takes to get your stress levels down, get your cortisol levels down, and also making sure that you get your nutrition in. I would recommend being on a calorie surplus throughout German volume training and just topping up your fat burning efforts with steady state cardio, which really isn't going to accumulate fatigue, and just making sure that you consistently get your calories in and making sure the macronutrient distribution is what you would plan it to be. Can't stress it enough. If you don't rest enough on German volume training, you will burn out. So in conclusion, German volume training really is one of the most effective training programs out there. So if you're an intermediate to advanced lifter, or you're under the supervision of a coach and you've got a clear runway of 6 weeks and you're really confident that you can see this through, you stand to benefit greatly and really see some rapid muscle growth over the course of the next 30 days or 6 weeks. Personally, I'll now use German volume training once or twice a year, depending on the kind of year it's going to be. If I see a clear runway for recovery, that's when I'll go into the second training phase. I used it very early on. I used it sort of a year into my training experience, and I gained quite a lot of muscle mass quite quickly with it. So it was quite successful, and it's remained a mainstay of the way I train ever since. I've even used it after injury to regain lost ground, where a little bit of muscle has been lost due to not being able to work out for a period of time. So I really recommend the training protocol. Like I say, take it seriously. It's a serious program, but good luck with it. You stand to see great benefits from it, and hopefully you can use it over and over again over the course of the next few years. Thanks, guys. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, please subscribe to the channel. And if you'd like me to help take the guesswork out of your health and fitness pursuits, please visit my website and book your free consultation where we'll discuss my online personal training service.